Live from Aldergrove, everyone. Hey, I'm James from Ocean Ceramics. I'm one of the owners here. We have a wonderful program arranged for our audience today. And on my left, I have Mark Stephans. Mark, you're sales manager with Align Technologies.
That's right, yeah.
Mark's an expert with the digital technology with digital intraoral scanners. On my right is my longtime teaching partner, Dr. Stephen Hill from Vancouver. He's an accredited member of American Academy of Cosmetic Dentistry. Steve and I have been creating smiles for many, many years together. We have a long time relationship in dentistry, and I'm proud to call him my friend. So we're have a wonderful program for you guys tonight. We're live from Aldergrove, BC at our brand new lab facility. And Mark, give me a quick little minute history of your journey in dentistry and how you got into being with Align Technologies.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been in dentistry for just over a decade now. Started off at dental implants and, started to learn a lot chairside and all that, and started to see my clients bit by bit getting into digital, right? It just started coming into everyone's conversation bit by bit. I thought, all right, maybe I got to get into that.
What year was that?
That would have been 2014 about where it started. Right. Yeah, people started talking about it quite a bit. So I started looking around at who was the front runner in the space and came across iTero. And to be honest, I actually harassed them for a job until they started paying attention. And now I've been with iTero for about 5 years and part of the digital community now and getting into further advancing digital dentistry in terms of not only scanning, but now getting into conversations about printing and milling and smile design. It's been really exciting.
Let me ask you this question. One thing I noticed probably about 4 or 5 years ago when we started working together, I used to get at that time a call a day or every other day. What scanner should I get? And, we don't get that call anymore because there's so many scanners flooding on the market, but it seems like there's a real growth curve for the technology into an office. What would you say is the number one driver for people deciding it's time to get a scanner?
I mean, that's a tough question for sure. I feel like a little bit of it is just that fear of missing out, right? People are just thinking, I'm starting to fall behind a little bit. And, that persona that you portray as soon as the patient walks in your office and, what kind of technology that you embody in your practice. But beyond that, I would say, people have just heard of the success that people like Dr. Hill have had and these adjustment-free crowns and whatever else you can do, the predictability of the results. And then that communication you can have with patients, because you could talk at someone all day long, but without that visual aid, they really don't get what you're trying to explain to them, right?
So the pizzazz factor.
The pizzazz and just the understanding of it, right? That's why we do PowerPoint slides and, we talk live on video. It's because if you just listen to a conference call, you're going to zone out. You're not going to follow along quite clearly, right?
So Steve, back in the early 2000s, you were actually one of the first docs to get in one of the original iTero scanners with us. What was the turning point for you to say, I got to have it?
Well, try. You know me, right? So I'm an early adopter, but I gotta show me the money. And so James says, you donated some equipment. We've got a place set up where we can. We volunteered somebody. Or wasn't you? Was somebody else? Tyrell.
Because you prepped his single central.
I prepped the single central, and then you said, here, use the honeycomb and the
scanner
and what's the auto mix one?
Yeah, there's honeycomb.
The honeycomb. And then here's the scanner. And then you brought in the ex-Marine scanner guy from iTero.
Yeah.
And so he sort of walked us through it. And I said, okay, let's take the impression. Let's take the scan, see what happens. So crown comes back. We got this all on film. I pick up the crown from iTero and it fits perfectly. It just absolutely slides into place. I pick up the one that we did the classic way. I couldn't get it on the die. Something had gone wrong. Something had distorted very slightly on the contact on the second tooth, and it didn't fit. And I said, "All right, set me up." So
awesome.
and then you correct those little problems, but you check the margins, and I was absolutely blown away. You can take the sharpest explorer that you want, run it over that margin, and don't do it on a model. Do it on the tooth, and it's very often imperceptible. And I've shown that to dentists that are older than me. Just see what that feels like.
Give it a try.
And it's so as a result, I got my first one. it was powered by Windows XP, so that died. So we had to get
What's
the
that?
second one. Exactly. And then Windows stopped their thing on that. And now I'm in my 60s and I'm thinking, do I really need to have another scanner? And the answer is yes. I don't want to go back to 5% failure rate as just the norm and margins that are acceptable, but are 50 microns when you can repeatedly dial these things down to 4 or 5 microns. So I'm in.
Awesome. Okay, everyone, so we're going to start the program. One of my favorite ways to start a program on any lecture is talking about where our journeys begin. One of the Bible verses that I lean on heavily that I learned from my dad many years ago is listen to advice and accept instruction, and in the end, you'll be wise. So here's a picture of our family many years ago in the 70s. My parents used to own one of the biggest crown and bridge labs in Western Canada. And my brother here in their arms, we are proud to say we're still running Ocean Ceramics today. And we have the next generation coming up, Tyrell and Curtis. And so we're very grateful for the mentorship that they've given us over the years. Another influential man in our life and our journey is Mr. Ed Harms on the right here with my brother. He taught us a lot after my dad passed away in '96. Let me ask you, Steve, who are the most influential mentors of yours in dentistry? If you had to come up with 2 or 3, top 2 or 3.
I was blown away the first time I saw Dr. Jeff Morley, and I forget his name at the moment. The name will come back to me, from Plano, Texas.
Jimmy
Eubanks. I could not believe aesthetics like I could see on the film on the screen before me, and could not understand how I could get there. And so they invited me to come and take a course. And so 5 years later, I finally get accredited with the American Academy of Cosmetic Dentistry. Those 2 men just meant the world to me. And then it wasn't more that I wanted to please them. It was just, I want to do what you do and do it as well as you do. And so, that's.
Yeah, those guys are artists as well as great clinicians.
Well, at the time, Jimmy was packing his own porcelain. He was stacking his own porcelain. His lab assistant quit. And so he went to his wife and said, I have to give up my weekends. I have to pack my own crowns. And she says, well, what are you going to give up? Crowns or golf? He said, okay, golf. So it's a true story. So
awesome. Well, we all have a history. We always learn from somebody. And, our agenda today is a real mixed bag because as we know in technology, so much changes so fast. A lot of the pearls that I'm going to share with you today, and Steve and Mark, we all bring something different to the table. And what we're going to do is share with you some pearls, literally that I found out last week that I'm going to bring in. Mark just shared some pearls with Steve today before we started the lecture. And Steve also is going to share with you some pearls today on case presentation. So let's get started here. What we're going to do is we want to equip you to understand some basic applications in digital scanning. We're going to talk about how to scan for predictable accuracy, how predictable data is used for accurate prosthetics. The big key here is predictable data. There's so much we take it granted for just because it's a digital scan, but is the data really accurate? We're going to go through these details. How technology is an investment and not an expense. One rule we always have at Ocean Ceramics here with any technology that we involve ourselves in or invest in is it has to pay for itself out of the gate. We're not waiting for the market to respond. The market's there. So we're going to talk about this on how Mark here has shown they have programs for you to experience that, and Steve can attest to that himself. How to make your basic prosthetics more efficient. That comes with reducing adjustments. So we're going to show you some techniques, tips, and tricks for achieving that. And that's what I mean, tips and tricks here. But over the years, when I started in dentistry myself, I almost felt like Daniel Boone. All I had was my brush as a ceramist, and I had my palette and my furnace, Now, Daniel Boone, when he was shooting a gun in the past, it was a muzzle loader. and they packed the black powder, put the pellet in there, and they took down a deer. But really, how was the accuracy with the tool of the day? It was the best of the day, but how accuracy was it? Today, now what we have is actually we have sniper rifles, and these rifles are accurate for miles. Proud to say the world record for a sniper is by Canadian military. Don't know which rifle that dude was shooting, but
Wasn't this,
pardon?
wasn't this one?
Wasn't this one. It's probably twice the length on the barrel.
Yep.
But anyhow, this specific sniper rifle is accurate to 1,200 meters. So, and the reason why I share these comparisons with you is these are the technologies that we have available today in dentistry. We live and die on the micron. But really, let's ask ourselves, what's clinically acceptable in dentistry? What do you think, Steve?
I've had this course before, so I think I know the answer.
Yeah, okay. What do they teach in dental school?
50 microns.
50 microns. Okay. Some reports say 80, some say 100. Depends what study, right? But for the norm, if anything is accurate within 50 microns, it's clinically acceptable. 50 microns.
Acceptable by the American Academy of Prosthodontics.
Yeah.
A 50 micron opening to a margin is acceptable.
Okay, perfect. But let's ask ourselves, why do we go digital for anything? It's for accuracy and efficiency. But let's really narrow this down though. It has to do with a mechanical task. You can only digitize a mechanical function with supreme accuracy and efficiency. This is one of the things our mentor Ed Harms told us years ago. So we're talking about impressions, models, articulations, frameworks, abutments. This can all be digitized. But efficiency on artistry, on artistic tasks is very subjective. When we're creating something from nature, from the inside out, this is purely artistic. It's very, very difficult to digitize it. Now, we do have CAD/CAM abilities that everything can be digitized, but at the end of the day, when we're recreating some nature, before it goes into the mouth, it requires a level of artistry. Even a gold crown requires a level of artistry. So larynx ceramics, prepping a tooth, communication, it's all artistic. Now here's some of the technologies of the past. I think this is actually a photo from Dr. Ron Shoup. There's this veneers I did for him years ago. I remember when Steve and I started working together in the 90s, you were still working with Polaroids, weren't you?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, that was the best technology of the day. So here, this is like a stick bite back in the day. That was actually Bob's back in the day that he sent me. I pulled, that's an old one, old file. So here's the difference. We have articulating paper, but then we have T-scan. We have a stethoscope for listening to a jaw joint, but now we have a JVA, joint vibration analysis. You know, we can palpate muscles by hand, but now we have EMGs to measure muscle activity. This can all be digitized. T-scan, we can actually test and digitize how teeth are coming together, what the forces are on the left or the right. In this example, it's 76% on one side, 24 on the other. The Holy Grail is 50-50. Digital radiographs. Okay, this happens to be me. So down here on the bottom left are my tomograms, my jaw joint position. This is my airway assessment here. I'll be bringing this up later on. And here we also see my jaw joint position in centric. More and more, we're working with digital articulation. You know, we still work with a lot of different articulators, Aculiner, Panadent, Stratos. But, you know, a lot of times we're transferring the records from a physical articulator. When we do a digital design, it becomes a digital articulation. So this is all mechanical. But one thing that hasn't changed over time is that dentists like accuracy, efficiency, and consistency. You know, I run into a lot of dental lab technicians in the marketplace, and people say, oh, I got the best quality. Oh, yeah? What's your quality? Well, I have the best margin, the best contacts, the best shades. I says, that's not the #1 quality a dentist buys. I said, do you know what the number one quality is dentist buys from any dental lab? And they go, what? I says, it's the product called consistency. It's the exact same. They want the consistency of fit, function, aesthetics, but that's what they want as a package. So we went on our journey over the years to come up with the best analog crown and bridge records compared, this is before digital came along. So this is what we call our package of the best analog records for a standard single molar crown. This is what I can attest to be the records so that an office can receive an adjustment-free crown. So this is a honeycomb impression with a stock tray. On the left, a status blue impression on the opposing, and a bite registration that's been recorded exclusively just over the prep. Now, a lot of people may say, well, why honeycomb? Why status blue? Why O-bite? Every one of these records has a specific purpose. Number one is, my brother learned over the years from Dr. Dick Tucker, the gold guy, that all materials shrink, all impression materials shrink, and all die stones expand. But the key to a proper fitting crown is one must offset the other. Now, what we have here is we know for sure that honeycomb shrinks 0.05%. Now, this is significant because if we want to get a die stone that expands 0.05%, we're going to zero out the shrinkage factor with an expansion factor to get an accurate fit. This science has proven us for so many years that the stone expansion must precisely offset the impression material shrinkage. And how accurate is the model? Why is that relevant? Well, the relevancy comes because we want to know how accurate the model is in microns. As lab technicians, we live and die on the micron, whether it's a contact or whether it's an occlusion. But the question becomes, once again, what's clinically expected and acceptable? A regular crown prep versus an implant prep. So let me ask you, we get all sorts of prescriptions in, and many doctors say, yeah, I want dual foil relief on the occlusion. So Steve, what do you think is the reason a lot of doctors say I want dual foil relief?
They want an adjustment less delivery.
Okay.
Doesn't fit, doesn't bite, but you don't have to adjust.
Okay, so that's what we figured out a long time ago. Now, let me ask, because I don't know if you remember this trivia, Mark, but how many microns is dual foil relief?
Let's go 100.
Is that because you saw the lecture before?
No, is it?
Yeah, it is.
Yes.
You were paying attention.
It was paying attention. Okay, this is very, very significant because 100 microns, just to put it in perspective, is 1/10 of a millimeter. That's a country mile. Because if clinical acceptance is 50 microns and we get a lot of people to ask for 100 micron relief, that's a lot. Patients can detect the thickness of a hair in between their teeth. What's the thickness of a hair, Mark?
10 microns.
20. Close.
Pretty
Okay,
good, pretty good.
so 20 microns. So you know, if we can feel the thickness of a hair between our teeth, why would we want something 100 microns? There's a degree of accuracy to take away the headache in a day, and that's what people want when their crowns go in. So let's have.
What I like to say,
Yeah.
when discussing this with the patient, do you know how sensitive your teeth are? And they say, what do you mean? Hot, cold? I don't know, just a touch. And I don't know. I said, well, tonight, brush your teeth, spit out your mouthful, and before you rinse, just rub your teeth together. And you'll be able to feel the grit that they use in toothpaste. Take a little bit of that toothpaste and look at your finger. You can't even see the size, the grit that's in the toothpaste that you can feel between your teeth. That's how accurate your teeth are.
Oh, that's a great analogy. I never heard that one before. We recorded it because we got that recorded, Mark. Okay, we got our producer Mark in the background. Okay, so So let's talk about accuracy. Okay, let's just look at a simple 3-step workflow. We get a scan, it gets plugged into the vending machine of the lab with Ocean Ceramics, and then we send out a crown to clinic. Now, we work with hundreds and hundreds of printed models in the course of a month. But what we want to do is talk about printing accuracy. Before we get into the modelless world, we want to talk about the model world, because there's a lot of pluses and negatives in the model world before we can appreciate the modelless world. Okay, but here's a fact: we track any remake that comes back to the lab, and I want to share with somebody our own internal data. Here's a fact that 98% of any remake at Ocean is a direct result of a faulty analog impression. Okay, that's a big consideration. Okay, now a big part of a flawed impression is that the margin isn't picked up because the impression material hasn't captured the margin. So I'm going to have Steve explain his simple technique to make sure that whether it's an impression material or a scanner, that it has to see the margin or the material has to find the margin. So Steve, let's just pass the torch to you. And these are your clinical slides on your core technique.
Often when we're presenting this stuff, we'll make the comment, I don't do anything that I used to do in school, because we've had such, growth in our sciences and everything else. I learned this in school. I'm now 64 years old. I've been a dentist for 38 years. We pack a small cord at first with a little hemodent on it. We pack a larger cord on top of that, black for the first one, because I want that visual contrast. I'm going to take the second cord out after it's rested for a bit, because I want to see a very clear visual demarcation of where my margin is. If I can see it, I know my scanner can pick it up. That's
Perfect.
it.
Your slides. Good.
Yep.
So what's this one here?
That's the first one. That particular one is the gingerbread. It expands as it soaks up the hemodent. It packs quite thin. This one looks thinner, but it's braided, and so it's very dense, and so it will push the other one out of the way. You want to pack this cord in between the tooth and the first cord you put it in.
This one appears dry. Is it dry?
It is not. It
What
is also,
do you treat it with?
back in the day, this would have been epinephrine. It had a cord soaked in epinephrine. So it didn't get it wet. I just packed this in place. I've stopped using that. I have a largely geriatric patient base, and I'm a little bit worried about the amount of epinephrine that you can introduce. So I just use the same hemodent again, and with a similar sort of cord. So you pack that in, let it in, bring it out. Then you got the sulcus sort of held out of the way with the black cord in it, but it still gives a good visual piece.
How long do you let that sit for before you pull that?
Depends. This patient of mine is a dentist. I did some veneers for him, and he kept popping on veneers. He was 70 or something when he got it done. And this was about the time that I learned you can't bond everybody's dentin. And so I'm turning this into a crown case. And so I asked him, if I could take these pictures. So in his particular case, his hygiene is impeccable. Seconds is all you really need. If you've got the badly broken down tooth, or the one that's got the big filling underneath it, that's been there for 30 years and the tissue is all inflamed, you got to leave it sit. And so in a case like that, I start with the gingerful paste, retraction paste, then the cords, and afterwards, if it gets a little bit tough, then after all of that, I use a Compra cuff. Look it up. It's just looks like a cotton roll. It's sort of cut, and you bite on it, it puts pressure on the area. I'll leave that sit for 2 or 3 minutes. And if all else fails, I've got a little NV laser that I can do a gingivectomy with, or cauterize it with.
So you're fully equipped. You got your emergency kit
I
in
will,
case
if
you
I
can't
can't
see that margin.
now. A nod to Invisalign, because I've only ever done this once before. And it's because we did this last lecture back in March or May or something, whenever it was. Mark reminded us that if you've got a problem, you're looking at the screen, you've scanned it, you got the margin, you've missed something on the tooth. You go back, you scan it again without isolating the rest of it, and some blood has come up on it. All of a sudden, your scan has got blood on it. You can't see the margin. Well, the only digital system that allows you to do this is Itero. You can phone Itero and say, can I get somebody to look at that scan, because it's got all the data. None of the data is lost unless you absolutely erase it, and just dial it back down to where you can see the margin. So I didn't send this to my good friend James. I sent it on to another lab because I just didn't want to have to deal with the consequences. And so Will gave me a call and he says, I don't know, but I'm looking at this thing. It's 15 minutes later. I don't think I can see the margins. And I said, I know you can't, but I've contacted them. I've been promised in a day you'll get a different dye indication back from the lab. It actually took 3 days. Don't mind, really don't mind. And Will says, I can see a perfect margin here, but are you sure about this? And I said, go ahead and make it. And it fit perfectly, absolutely fit perfectly. So that you can't get this from Trios or iMed or iMedit or any of these other, they don't have the
They
background.
don't have the modeling department.
They're a model, and they don't have the help that Itero has. So trust me on this one. I bought a minute, I gave it up, I went back to Itero.
Awesome.
So that's a plug for Itero. I don't get paid by Itero, right? Just telling you it's a superior product. But this is how I manage to get the margins every time. If I can't see the margin, I won't send the case. I'll bring the patient back. I run out of time, we'll re-prep, and we'll do that. But you got to get the margin.
Perfect. You're still on.
Really? Now what's
Yeah.
next?
Now you got your occlusal view going there.
Lovely. Do I have the next slide? Okay, no, okay. So that's the second cord in place. You can see the yellow right here. The next slide is what it looks like when you're looking down. And we took an impression here. Why did we take an impression here? Was this before my days? of
This is
scanning?
before
This was-
scanning.
That was,
That's how long you've been doing this technique.
this is like 2002 or something, but there's the margin, right?
No, that's your screen right there.
Yeah.
That's the next slide.
That's the next slide.
Yeah.
All right.
There you go. Look at that pickup.
The other mark is just.
But that's the kind of margin you
Convection
want to
element.
scan or impress.
Exactly, exactly. Now there's no notes. I think this is you.
Okay, this is the holy grail of getting margins for a lab. Okay, remember, whenever we have a bad material or a bad technique or bad retraction, this is what can happen. We've actually had impressions like this coming in, and we've had the phone call, do the best you can, but we do not endorse this type of dentistry to restore to. Actually, in this dentist that back in the day that sent this case in, he ended up actually having his license revoked, and for too many reports of faulty dentistry. But it's a good story of what not to do. Now, I want to talk about the digital trap. And this is comes from the experience of our journey in the lab world with CAD/CAM. And I see it the same thing with in the clinical world with technology. We're all have this assumption that if we do something digital, that it's perfect every time, flawless with every attempt. And I just want to share with everybody that it's a mind trap, and I call it the digital trap, because even though we are working with all these digital technologies that are so cool, we still have to employ, just like with an impression material, we have to employ proper technique if we want to leverage the benefits of the excellency of digital. So a big part of what the three of us want to share with you all today is what you have to do to experience the excellency of digital. And that's really a big part. So please don't get caught in the trap that just because it's digital, it's perfect every time. You still have to employ, adapt, and learn the technique to enjoy that excellence. Okay?
James, I say in my lectures that people think of digital, sometimes they think of autocorrect on your iPhone. Right?
Yeah.
You just smash the keyboard and look at this beautiful sentence that comes out.
And you get yourself in trouble.
Yeah, digital scanners are not like that, right? If you
That's
have
true.
bad dentistry, it'll highlight really clearly bad dentistry.
Exactly, but it's a great opportunity to adapt your dentistry to another level of excellency. Okay, so let's talk about, we're gonna talk about scanning accuracy and printing accuracy. Okay, we're gonna look at both. But let's first look at intraoral scan technique. And this is whether you are, doesn't matter what scanner you have, these principles are all true. Okay, so I did a little investigating for some independent research from the Journal of Prosthetic Dentistry. This is a recent study done on the effect of scan patterns on cross arch scans with 4 different digital scanners. So here what we have. And the reason why I show you this, these options of scan patterns is what we can tell sometimes when scans come in is that somebody just takes the wand, rams it in the mouth, and just kind of captures data on the fly. And this is such a poor approach to capture accurate data. That's no different than taking a PBS impression and just plowing it into the mouth and just thinking it's going to be all accurate because it's a good material. We have to employ proper technique. So what we're going to do is you can see all these different scan patterns that if we have different starting points. So we're just going to look at the top left here. If we start on the occlusal, go back around, and then come around the front, and then rock back and forth. And, you know, if we had to look at here, all these different scan patterns, can everybody see that there's the potential for some variation of data being stitched together accurately? Okay, so I don't know, you guys already know the answer to the question, don't you?
So, yeah.
You want to ask somebody on the, anybody on the audience, if you want to text in on the chat box, okay.
And
Scan technique, 1, 2, 3, or 4.
Marco will be demonstrating at the end of the lecture here today about what we believe is the best way to do it. And he can do it a lot better than I can.
So we'll give you 5 seconds, somebody in the audience, to take a guess.
Just guess.
I need a cricket's submission.
No?
Nothing.
Okay. Well, what happens in this study, the answer's coming, is they take all this scan data and they align it together and see which scan patterns are most accurate. So there's an element, an emerald, an omnican, and a trios at the time this study was done. And here we have scan pattern 1, 2, 3, 4, 4. There's the winner, scan pattern number 2. Now, what's unique and really kind of cool is that when I was down in Raleigh, North Carolina, was it last week, and they were talking about scanning sequence, it's very close to this one that iTero has on their element system.
Yeah.
So so
I'm
it's
relieved
very
that's the
supportive.
answer.
What's that?
I'm relieved that's the answer.
Yeah,
because that's the
exactly.
way we've been training for years.
Exactly. So now I want to look at, you know, we get quadrant impressions and then we get full arch impressions in. So what I want to talk about now is how accurate is a true cross arch scan? Because sometimes everything comes down to stitching data in all these different regions of an arch. So this study looks at the accuracy of cross arch scanning versus quadrant scanning. So when we look here, so this is the study here, okay, the base. What we have here is a solid model with implants with scan bodies. So this is obviously somebody's all on 6 model, but what they're doing is scanning with all the different scanners and with that unique scan pattern technique. We're doing all these different patterns from this body here to here and then across. And then once again, they align all the data together and see which one is most accurate. So whatever is green is good, whatever's blue or red is bad. So thank God there's nothing that's red out there. But when we go into the blue area, this is where we get into inaccuracies. Now, what they did in this study, which is really unique, is they actually split it up. On the top here, we have linear, which is the quadrant scanning. And here's the standard deviation of all the different scanners. You know what? Everything here, we always say anything within 50 microns is clinically acceptable. So we have a great bundle of all these scanners that are very clinically acceptable for quadrant scans. But let's see what happens when we advance and have a look at the cross arch scanning. And look at this, iTero's very, very tight right in the middle there. And that has to do with fantastic stitching of the data. And we're going to talk about proper data stitching in the future. But this is very, very significant when we're doing bridge work. And we always want to make sure that bridge work has the most accurate data stitched together for capture. So scanning conclusion. Scanning technique is just as important as a PVS impression technique if you want to achieve adjustment-free results. It's absolutely imperative. So for crown and bridge scan pattern, which is the best? This is the pattern. So basically, you're going to start with a reference point on your most distal area, and then you're going to bring it over the occlusals to the front. Then you're going to come back, capture the linguals, and then you're going to bring it back over the buccal again. And so you're basically going to come all the way across and back. Never seesaw back and forth over the occlusal as you go. Go in that nice cross arch form. You're going to capture the most stitching and meshing data.
James, a question I get pretty often.
Yeah.
Is there ever a time from the lab perspective that you would rather a full arch scan as opposed to a quadrant?
Fantastic question. I would say if it is a, boy, I wish I had a model here. If it was a single molar, or maybe a bi and a single molar, like a 2-unit case, as long as we have a positive stop on the last tooth, okay, and we have a positive stop in the front, then totally we can get away with a quadrant and have accurate function. But the minute, oh, thanks. So this is a good demo here. So if we have a positive stop on the lower here, and we're doing, say, crowning 2 teeth, and we got a positive stop in the anterior region, for sure we can do a quadrant, 1 or 2 units. But if it's like 2 units and they're free end in the back, hands down, we need the cross arch, because that's, you need a tripod occlusion. And so that's why literally we've had scans come in where you have a couple teeth in the front and a bridge here. It's like, well, it's digital, it should be perfect. Well, we can't dial in an accurate occlusion if we don't have any function on the opposite side. So that's, it all comes down to how many teeth we're restoring, and do we have a positive stop in the posterior region? Okay.
Perfect. Good answer. Thank you.
Yeah. Bites. This is one thing, the first thing we learned from the iTero rep back in the day, and we also advise this to doctors when you're taking any crown and bridge bite, have the patient clench into the bite record, or when you're doing a bite scan. And there's a real simple explanation why. And what that is think about this. When somebody, you to ask them to go and, okay, put your bite into most intercuspation, or what do you say to a patient?
Bite.
Just bite?
Bite.
Okay. So bite, ask them to bite hard, because they got to hold that position, because the minute the wand goes in the mouth to do a bite scan, there's going to be some neurological resistance to something going in the mouth, and it's going to alter the bite. And so instruct the patient to clench into place so that when the scanner goes in to capture the bite scan, there's no deviation of the occlusion.
There's a way around that though, too.
What's the trick?
Ask the patient to open, put the scanner in, and then clench.
Perfect.
And there's none of that neurological response.
I like that too. Okay. Awesome.
I learned that from her.
Now, this is one of the most groundbreaking achievements at Ocean that we've done in the last few months, is when you take a bite registration for a night guard, an airway appliance, or an orthotic, a TMD appliance, have an anterior jig of some sort called a
that.
splint bite. The postures the bite open so that you can do your, the postures the bite open so that you can do your bite scan. Okay, because, and I'll go into depth later on why that's so important. But that is the best way to capture the bite for any removable appliance. So to achieve adjustment-free modelless prosthetics, here's 3 things we need. It must be perfect. If you want to step in from the model world to the modelless world, exposure of all the surfaces to be scanned has to be perfect. Stability and capture of all surfaces to be scanned has to be stable. Can't have something floating around. And the technique of capture. So we made some references on scan pattern, but later on we're going to go into some specific tips and trick details of when you're actually doing a capture. So once again, we're going from the impression scan to the lab, back to the clinic with printing accuracy. So on the left here, this is the first system you worked with, hey, Steve? The one on the cart?
No, that's the second one.
Oh, that's the second one.
Yeah.
Was the other one twice as big? Or the first one twice as big?
It was about the same size. The monitor was
Okay.
smaller.
There was
Gotcha.
actually a model before that. I don't know if you ever even seen that, that had to be people, construction workers had to come in and install it into your wall.
Really?
It
Nope,
couldn't,
you
it
didn't
couldn't
see
be
that one.
held up. You had to have an entire device slide over into the.
Like the,
It would literally be this wand sticking out of basically your light that you move around. It'd be the wand sticking out of that. And you have to
Wow.
move the patient to it. It's great. It was, yeah. Get it going.
and then Steve's generation, he had a med for a short time, and it didn't take him long to tell a story. Well, you tell a story. Why'd you all of a sudden flip and get the element?
I don't think there's time to
Okay.
go through the.
So anyhow, this is the one Steve's got right
Basis.
now. That's behind Mark and I.
Correct.
And here's a case, this is a case we did for Dr. Ron Shoup in Kelowna. Ron jumped on the technology. He's retired now. And anyhow, we did a couple gold crowns, and Ron is a seasoned prosthodontist in Kelowna, and he engaged in the technology later in his career because he just saw the benefits as well. So here we go, Steve. This is a case.
This is
What's the story on this one? This is the one that had like multiple roots or canals or something crazy like that.
young girl, just got out of high school, got into university 5 years before she got back into to come and see me. Tiny little cavity on her tooth that went straight into the pulp.
So this tooth was endo.
This tooth was endo. So monster endo, 4 canals or something, and all kinds of stuff to do. So it's time to do a crown. She can't be more than about 25 or something at this point. And so here's the prep. This is this would have been the 1 or 2.9 models again. And then send it off to my favorite lab, Ocean Ceramics. This is the crown. And then we deliver it. Now, when I'm in a room where we can get some answers, I ask everybody, what do you see wrong with this crown? And invariably somebody will say, oh, I can see the margin here. That's, that's an exposed margin. And I can tell you very, very precisely that I do this all the time with the all ceramic restorations. Nobody on a posterior tooth has ever complained. If you do this in a PFM, you get the dark line and everything, and people will complain. But this is just, I call this pre-recessed. And it's not going to recess any further because the margin is above the gingival margin. And so then somebody invariably in a room of about 50 people will notice that this tooth is on backwards. Not on backwards. But when the technician brought down the catalog thing out of his computer to make this, he picked
They imported the wrong tooth.
he imported a 3.6, not a 4.6. And I missed it. I cemented this thing in place. It's my fault that that's sitting there. When I told James this, he says, we can't show that to anybody, but you know what? You know,
Here we
you-
are.
you
Here we
need to
are.
know. You need to know, none of us are perfect.
Yeah, but the crown fit like a dream.
It did.
Okay, so here's a couple systems that are very popular. Oh, Mark, what's the difference between the Flex and the Element 5? We got a chart for you later on, but
Yeah.
just in a nutshell.
Mobility, that's it.
Okay,
The smaller one is
like
to
going off
carry
the
around.
app and stuff.
No, op to op, you want the cart like we got back here, but the one that's built into the screen like that, and no cart. That's if you're throwing it on a plane, you're going to your fifth
Oh, I
clinic.
see, okay.
You sell like 100 of these ones compared to that one.
Oh, yeah, like, I'd say, yeah, two,
Okay.
two for every 100 of those.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, so I want to dive into a little bit of Ocean Ceramics journey when it comes to when we had to go into a printed model system. Okay, and I want to go back to what's clinically acceptable in a model. So we went through, actually, I spent an entire year investigating and researching many different printers on the market at the time. And because this is like the new era of dentistry, Itero had very successful milled models. They're literally the pioneers of the most accurate milled models on the planet. But with all the different files we had coming in, Itero won't take a Trios, they won't take a Medit file to make models. So we had to figure out an accurate model system. So I had to go through a very extensive model analysis system. So what I did was, I says, okay, Steve, can you send me a straight STL file of a case? It's a single unit case. He says, why? I says, you'll see. So what I did is I took the file and I sent the file off to many different printer and third-party milling centers to get milled models. And then Steve also took some impressions after the crown was made. We want to compare it to stone models. So we want to see what is the most accurate model system that we can work with. So what we did is, here's a third-party milling center out of Quebec that sent us a milled model. We got an Itero model here. This is a carbon printed model. We had a model from a Sega, and this is some other third-party model. So what we do is we actually take these models, physical models, we scan them in, and then we align them with the original intraoral scan STL file. And then what we do is we take a 2D cross section here, and then we can zoom in and actually analyze the accuracy of each contact and occlusal point. So what Steve did also for us, and that's why he gets the best wine from us and not the cheap stuff, is I asked, say, Steve, can you please take, without packing cord, before you cement the crown, of course, take a honeycomb impression in the mouth, some cheap PBS Steve keeps in the drawer for emergency, and then also take the honeycomb with a triple tray technique, because triple trays have dimensional change more than a stock tray. We're going to show this to you why it's so important to stay away from triple trays.
And it's not it's the same material.
It's
so
the same material.
It's not
It's not a
comparison
shrinkage factor.
between two different.
Yeah, so this is a really, really good comparison when we compare triple tray impressions to stock tray impressions, and then also against different printed models from different companies. And we're just comparing data. And this is very important for us. Before we invest in a system, I want to make sure we're nailing accuracy that's clinically acceptable. So here it is with the honeycomb triple tray. So what we did here actually is we zoomed in, and is that coming up full screen, Mark? Here. No, this whole slide is full screen because I got a hard time seeing this contact dimension. Okay, can I make it full screen on my side? No? Okay, can I zoom? No.
Looking closer, getting place closer to the screen.
Oh, here. Yeah. Okay, so what it shows here is this contact area is like 70 microns out. I'm going from memory here. It's like 68 or 69. 69. Okay, my memory's serving me good. And that's from a triple tray impression. That's 60 microns short. Here we go.
That's better.
Okay, so now we got 82 microns on one side, 81 on the other. Now, if we add that together, it's 160 microns. That's a country mile and a half. I guarantee you, if we were to finish the crown to that triple tray impression, Steve would be cussing and swearing our ocean name because he had to grind these contacts into place. Now, just as an illustration on the left here, this is an extracted tooth that was sent in for a shade record once, but I had to look at this tooth and look at the marginal gap here and look at the ground contact. This crown did not seep all the way, but what it does illustrate to me is this crown, that's whatever technician made this crown probably had it adapted to the die very nicely, but for whatever reason, it didn't seat in the mouth. There's probably some dimensional inaccuracies going on here. So we just want to make sure that our model work and our scan data is accurate. If you want to walk into the Modeless world, this is where you have to be with accurate. This is where you don't want to be with accuracy. So these contacts are way too wide. So let's carry on. Now we have the honeycomb stock tray model. We scanned it in, aligned it. So this is the original iOS scan on the left. This is the model, and up above here, you can see they're aligned, merged together, and we do a 2D cross section to measure the contacts. And let's have a look at the data. Oh, the stock tray. And here we got a 50 micron and we got a 50 micron. To us, this is the holy grail. Now, let me ask you this. Do you remember this trivia question, Mark? If you were to take a micron and measure floss, how thick is floss?
50 microns.
Waxed or unwaxed?
Waxed.
Unwaxed floss is 50 microns.
Okay.
But if it's waxed, it's 100.
Wow.
So let's just evaluate if you're using what floss you're using to gauge or judge a contact. Just be aware, if you're using a wax floss, it's going to be a lot thicker to get your snap contact as opposed to unwaxed. Okay. What do you use, Steve? Unwaxed? Okay. So this is, we don't want to give everybody a false judgment when they do a floss snap on a contact. So this is with a honeycomb stock tray, 50 micron accuracy on the contacts. Now, here's some comparisons. I got a model back from Asiga. I just sent it to the company and send me your printed model, and I scanned it in and aligned it. And now we have, it's like 30 and 30. It's fantastic accuracy. It was a great printer. I almost bought it. Now let's see, I sent a model off for Carbon 3D. Carbon, very popular brand. They do have great accuracy, but for this model I got back, what was peculiar is one contact was 76 microns and the other side was like 15. So I thought, why the discrepancy from one to the other? Once again, I'm sure Carbon has got a great brand name out there for doing wonderful models, but the cost analysis and I can't afford the inconsistency. It's not going to fly for me because that will yield an adjustment in the mouth if I'm measuring the accuracy to the model.
Milled model.
Pardon me?
The
No,
milled
this is a printed one.
If this is the printed one,
Carbon's a printed one.
but you're using you're using the data.
Are
Not from the
you
model.
dialing the
SDL,
contact into
just
the
SDL
model?
file. Got it.
Okay.
Sorry.
I'm just saying this would be if I got 75 microns on one side and 15 on the other.
Yeah.
It's gonna raise some eyebrows for accuracy. Okay, now I look at the iTero milled model. Now, these are fantastic. Every iTero milled model I've scanned in has been within 15 to 20 microns of accuracy. They are fantastic. I'd like to know how many models you guys bang out in a day.
A lot.
I know.
Yeah.
The guys in Raleigh told us that it's actually the most productive lab in the world
Yeah, we're the,
Doesn't
is
surprise me.
iTero.
Doesn't surprise me.
we're the largest 3D printing company in the world.
Mhm.
Yeah. 3D.
So at the time, at
Curious,
the end of
not
my
just
journey, this printer system from 3D Systems came out, the Nextent 5100. And at that time, we had this full arch case come in. So I had, I think you can't see, it's 14 or 12 units in the back here. Anyhow, I got the printed model back from Nexten. And then what I did was I scanned it in and I thought, okay, these guys say they're the best. Let's see. So I did the same analysis. I scanned it in and I actually did a cross arch accuracy test from this data point to this data point, because the hardest thing always is to reproduce sometimes cross arch accuracy. So when I did my analysis, those two cross arches, 2 points across the arch, were out within 8 microns. It was outstanding. So that was a deal breaker for us. So we invested in that system. We have like 3 of them pumping day by day, day after day. So the nice thing about this material too is we got, we can print dentures, surgical guides, try-ins for dentures, crown and bridge for bonded overlays, of course, models, ortho rigid for night guards, and now we also have ortho flex for night guards. But let's look at some real life situations. Now, over some months, we started getting in complaints the contacts are too tight. So why would the contacts be tight, Mark?
You got me. I don't know.
Okay, no, the reason why I throw you that question is because I'm sure you get that question from various offices out there when you're making your rounds and in the field. My contacts are tight or my contacts are loose.
All right, I gotta guess. Because the accuracy of digital is higher than that of analog and traditional impressions, that the lab tech doesn't have quite the leeway to play with that they would.
Possibly.
Yes, possibly.
But the best way to determine what the problem is follow the data. Because the data never lies. We get accurate data, the data never lies. So the key is that we always must have a verification system in place to follow the data. Because if the data matches up, then we can isolate where the problem is. Because we don't know if maybe the temporary went in with a jackhammer and spread the teeth apart. We don't know. We don't know if maybe the bite was left too loose and the tooth erupted and now we got a high bite. We don't know. But so what we want to do is follow the data. So the first thing I did here is with this specific case is I was looking at an EnvisionTech printer and I thought, okay, I'm going to check this out. Okay, so I took an iOS file from Dr. Marango's here. We were doing a bunch of onlays on one quadrant. So he had like crown and onlay, a little bit of everything. And so those are usually the most challenging prints to pull off because you got all sorts of different undercuts. And whenever you print something, you can't print accurately into thin air if it's unsupported. So that's why this is a good model. So what I did was I sent off and I analyzed all these, and basically, without reading all the fine print there, I wanted to determine what type of printer and what settings were yielding a good model for this case. So as it turned out, the EnvisionTech, the D4K printer was superior. With the 50 micron settings with the layers. So we ended up investing, we bought one of those also as a backup printer. But when I sent it off to Nexten, what I ended up doing was I says, look, I can't this is a really tough model. Can you tighten up the contacts for me on prints? So I was talking to this engineer in Holland, Lars, and he goes, yeah, absolutely, and so anyhow, they actually created our own custom prosthodontic print profile that we put into our software, so it tightens up the x-axis by an extra 20 microns, so that our contacts come out 20 to 30 microns instead of 40 to 50. So it's amazing that we can dial in, but the only way that they could go, okay, we can do this, is because we analyze the model and we says, here's the data. If you don't have the data, you're guessing and you can't do guesswork. So I always give a shout out to Adrian and Lars from NextEnt or 3D Systems, because literally that was a tremendous tech support so that we can dial in our models to that type of accuracy. Well, let's look at this situation. Loose contact.
All the data.
Follow the data. Well, what do you think could be happening, Steve, with causing loose contacts in the mouth in your, if an office says this, why is there loose contacts when it's snug on a model? What do you think could be happening?
The first question I would ask you is this a consistent thing coming out of the lab, or is this just a one-off or occasional kind of thing?
Let's say, pretending I'm a doctor, say, yes, it's consistent.
Why is it that the contacts are too tight,
Loose. We're
Oh,
talking
too
about
loose.
loose contacts.
too loose? The only thing I can think of is sometimes teeth move,
Okay.
and between the 2 weeks that it takes, or 1 week even, between when the contact, or when the temporary goes in and by the time the permanent one comes in, teeth move.
How about temp expansion
That too,
over time?
as it absorbs the water, that it can do that.
Okay. What do you do actually for your protocol with temps? Do you floss snap your temps to get them dialed into the way you want them?
Right.
And the bite, do you leave it slightly open? Like, do you wipe out the occlusion, or do you have a positive contact?
Positive contact and make sure that I rarely bring out the T scan to do that.
Okay.
It's just you get a sense, even with a patient that's numb, it'll tell you, yeah, it feels pretty good. You do not want to take it out of the booth.
Right. Well, here's a real life situation where we got a complaint from a doctor that the mesial contact was wide open by a country mile and completely accuses us of gross incompetence. So this is okay. Let's take a step back. Take a pickup impression of what you're actually seeing in the mouth. So he took a pickup impression with the crown in place so that the PBS material went into the gap of the contact that is supposed to be wide open. Sends in the model. So I took a video here and I'm showing how I scanned in the model, and I'm doing a 2D cross section here. And I'm going to show and analyze how the contact discrepancy is. So I'm zooming in. So you can see how the crown has absolutely, is different distally than it is, to the crown that we made. So then what I did is, so this shows how I do it. I set up a work order. You have to set up a work order, scan the case in, and then I also scanned in the model now. The previous one was with the crown in place. This one is without the model. And same thing, we do a 2D cross section just exclusively on the distal of this contact. And I analyzed that contact of his pickup impression to the iOS scan is accurate to within 26 microns, which is fantastic. This tooth, everything here is amazingly accurate. But have a look what happened here. The whole prep distalized somehow. So I sent him the video, I texted him the video, and I said, hey, understand there's an issue with this open contact. I explained the analysis that, hey, it shifted, the contact's accurate to 26 microns, but for some reason, that tooth shifted. So we added the contact to that pickup impression. And at the end of all this explanation, he says, sounds good, teeth move. Never seen an implant move, but teeth move. So anyhow, we could not have isolated the issue. Why the tooth moved, I don't know. That's up to his clinical discretion. But maybe, I don't know, maybe it was high in contact and with a little bruxism at night. Maybe it shifted at distal. I don't know.
Inclined plane drove it back probably on the temple.
It would at night with
Yeah.
bruxing.
Well, even if you get it in the bite, if it goes to Brux and that inclined plane is just a little too sleek, oops, it
Gotcha.
just moves.
Okay.
It'll move not much.
Right. So anyhow, the tooth movement is a risk. But once again, we want to go into showing you all how to be snipers with your data. we have to be able to analyze data. We can't just go on theory. In the age of digital technology, we have access to amazing data. We want to leverage that. Here's a little tip and trick when you're doing a wax up, a digital wax up, and we're printing models and making provisional stints. A really, really important tip is scan the palette. Always scan the entire palette here, okay? Because this is the positive stop that the provisional tray will sit on for accurate temperatures. So here's just a little video that we threw out on social media to share that. And I don't know, can they hear it on there? Or is it on? Okay, I'll just let that run. The accuracy. Provisional tray. Yeah, so what I'm showing here is we must scan the palette. That's the positive stop for the provisional tray to bottom out on. Stop. Not just teeth. We're prepping the teeth away. We could potentially prepping away all the positive. We're prepping away all the positive stops. So we need that palette for an accurate placement.
We just say the same thing with our Invisalign trays.
Yeah.
We need some gingiva. We need 3 to 4 millimeter gingiva.
I always wonder, why is it with the AI that they have, it cuts it like 2-3 millimeters from the gingiva when you have the AI turned on?
I mean, no, you should still have 3 to 4 millimeters of it.
Okay.
You can cut the gum, you can cut the cheek out of
Yeah.
or your glove chip out, but
Yeah.
it will take 4 or 5 millimeters of height. They want the height of contour.
Is the volume on?
It's like you're talking.
So, okay. Gotcha, okay. This. Doctor can see the reduction on the this little acrylic tray just clicks into place. So that's our cosmetic correct reduction guide. And it's a printed guide designed all digital. Okay. So this little depth reduction guide we get for this case. How to nail these smiles out of the ballpark. Give James Dave Tyrell.
You're asking the question to answer.
On what?
He said, do you have any questions? And on the video, it's like, yeah, any questions?
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah, I can't hear the video.
Consistency. Yes, that's the product. Consistency.
Exactly. So I'm gonna just show you a smile case done by Dr. Heidi North and Whistler Dental that we did a couple of years ago. So this is Maggie. She's a very, she's the biggest realtor in all of Whistler. And she gave me permission to use her images because I'm sure she'd love to score a deal out of somebody that sees her smile. But when we first provisionalized her, she felt and we felt that her teeth were just a little wee bit on the long side. So what we did was we just took our standard photos, which is a standard portrait here on the left. This is our digital stick bite photo. What's unique about this photo is we want to see how the maxillary plane lines up to the pupillary line, assuming that the pupillary line is symmetrically level in the face. So, but what's really key on this photo is that the photographer captures the maxillary plane level to the plane of occlusion. We can't be going down on the central teeth. So on the model here, we don't want to take the picture, the camera must be parallel to the occlusive plane. So, and then we take a full smile here, E on the left, and then M on the right here. So this is definitely looking a little bit just a hair long, and we all agreed, let's just shorten the temporaries about a 0.5 millimeter and then reevaluate it. And then she wanted the whitest smile in Whistler, so she picked out the 010 shade guide, and that's fine by me. So what we did then is we took her a scan of her temps, and then, but we didn't have the palette. So if we don't have the palette, it's very tough to import and align this file with the original design file. So this is the model here. the preps and everything, we were able to get it aligned somehow, even with this little bit of data, but it was very, very difficult. It took multiple tries. So this is just a great example where if you scan, just make it a habit with any maxillary, scan the palette, because you never know when you'll need that data, and it literally takes seconds to capture. So it's just a great habit to move forward with. So here we have the temporaries scanned in. And right here, there's a 2D cross section of the original file, and you can kind of see a little transparency of the temps. So what we did is we just took the entire smile in the front there, and we just raised it 0.5 millimeter, and we literally just nailed that length that she wanted. And we still haven't got final photos yet, but she picked out the natural smile design from our My Smile catalog on our website, which is a great tool that you can leverage in your office for patients to pick certain smile designs. These are real teeth that have been digitally modified, but Maggie, she picked out the natural that we designed into her provisionals. And that's the only final I could get. I pulled it off her website. She literally had this image on her website changed within days of these teeth going in. And her teeth jump out as big as her business card. So, but she's got one of the whitest smiles in Whistler, and she's also got one of the biggest rocks that I've ever seen on a woman's hand. It's the hugest diamond. So anyhow, she's just a wonderful lady. So let's do a little quick review on scanning tips in no specific order. Scan all vestibular areas. Once again, data is king. Let's just capture as much vestibular area as possible, especially when we're doing wax ups. Turn off the AI. If you're a good scanner, this is one of the tricks we taught us down in Raleigh, even though we have this great feature. If you have an inexperienced scanning person, turn the AI on. But if somebody's really good at scanning without picking up cheeks and tongues and all that sort of stuff, then leave it on, because we want that vestibular data, because we can use it for merging files later on. And scan full arches for anterior cases. This is a really good point to raise up here. If we're doing an anterior case here, it's really, really not a good idea to go, oh, well, we're just doing 1 or 2 units, so I'm just going to scan the 6 anteriors, because it's a really bad idea, because we have no function. We have no centric stop. We need centric stops. So if you're doing any anterior cases, just scan the arch, because we need that for function and centric.
Which is contradictory to the study earlier that showed that cross arch scanning can lose a little bit of accuracy, but still, that's why I always talk to clinicians when they ask my opinion. I say, talk to your lab. Your lab will be the ultimate deciding factor there.
That's right.
He wants the full arch, even though the study may say there are minor differences in the accuracy.
That's right. The more data we have, the better. And also, this is a really big one we'll be talking about more later on. Bite scan all orthotics and night guards with an anterior jig, because we want to capture that posterior dimension for every unique patient's DDO. Pack quarter in all preps, so the scanner can easily see the margins. If you can't see the margin, the scanner can't see it. So you have to be able to verify you can see the margins, so the scanner can.
And if I can expand on
Yeah,
that,
you betcha.
as Stephen commented on, he has that kind of emergency kit. Have compression caps, have retraction paste, have laser if you can. In case that double cord just isn't working for that particular patient, you have other methods in which to capture that margin.
Well, the nice thing about the paste is you don't have to worry about the light body being distorted, because that's the biggest risk with using the paste is the chemical compound in it will retard set light bodies unless you scrub it off.
Yep.
So it's if you're into the paste thing and you want to scan, it's no problem. You're not going to retard the scanner. Okay, so double check your clearance on preps with the software tools. So this is a big one that maybe Steve, you can touch on later on, but double check your clearance on preps with software tools. Scan bodies are in proper rotation and snapped completely seated for implants. I don't know how many times, I almost like the ones that screw into place better than the ones that snap into place, because sometimes it can hang up on something or you don't know it's snapped all the way in. But we can always tell, because if all of a sudden something is off by like 2 millimeters, we can tell it's not clicked into place.
Yeah.
So
You gotta take an X-ray, right? You have to take an X-ray.
even on a
for the
scan
chip.
body.
Scan body, every single time,
exactly.
without question.
So that's just a good clinical habit to have in place.
I lent a scan body to a rep who was going up to Pender Harbor or something. And somebody wanted to try one and she knew I had some. So I gave her a couple. And so she brought it back. And I looked at it and the hex portion of it was completely mangled. Somebody who had put it in didn't check to see if it was in, tightened it down and crushed the plastic. So I said to her, you better call her and tell her her crown is not going to fit.
Yeah,
A week later,
it didn't fit.
and she bought me another scan body.
Of course, and hopefully a bottle of
Ju-
wine
just
too.
don't- when you get into implants, you got to take the X-ray.
Yeah,
Do not forget to take the X-ray. Take the X-ray.
it's just a right wing.
Just PA,
Okay,
just to make sure it's seated. I had a problem with a case a little while ago, and I thought something had gone wrong with scan bodies. Or somebody suggested that maybe your scan body was done. I said, here's the X-ray. Oh, well, it's not that. And so by the time we turned everything in 3D, we realized that the pontic was hung up on bone. And it wasn't seating properly. It was warping as we was trying to get it in. So I had to do a little surgery to get enough clearance to sure that it seated back into place. But just because I had that X-ray, it removed my doubt about
Yeah,
the
and here's a-
integrity of the.
and here's a reality question we get in the lab sometimes is we'll get a scan in with a scan body, in place, and the office will say, well, how's the scan look? Well, it looks clear, but I can't tell if the scan body is accurate because I can't see below the tissue.
Yeah.
So did you verify it with a radiograph? Yeah, we'll find out. So
Implants can be its own topic,
It
own
is.
lecture, but I will say another quick thing, if you don't mind,
yeah,
is
sure.
for scan bodies, really important that you know what scan body it is.
Yeah.
If you use a third party Atlantis or whatever, that's fine. You can make it work versus a Strawman OEM, fine. But you need to know because that library file will be different for those two different scan bodies, even though they both match up with that same whatever implant. right?
Gotcha.
You need to put in the prescription the correct information that's
The exact scan body,
Yes.
the exact implant.
yes.
And to Itero's benefit, when you go into that area of what you're selecting to do, they'll ask you, is it a scan body? Who made the scan, what implant is it, and who made the scan body? So if you've got a Noble Biocare and you're using Medidinka, then you can match those two up and then everything. So
Thank you. Scan quadrants for 1 to 2 posterior units when the last molar is in place for a positive stop. That's like you were asking earlier, Mark. Okay, now this is a really good tip that I brought home from Raleigh when I was down there last week. To get a nice scan on a good surface, what they're recommending is wipe the teeth with a 2x2 gauze for the driest and cleanest contacts. This is talking about contacts. Air is not always guaranteed clean contacts. And that's because, if we think about what happens when we put a PBS impression into place, if there's any crown debris from prepping, saliva, goop, whatever, it's gonna, for the most part, squeegee that surface clean when the impression goes into place. If there's anything missed from rinsing and air drying. But if there is, and then we know this sometimes when we zoom in on a contact area, is sometimes it looks like flecks of a diamond on the surface. And I just think, there's no way that surface could be that rough.
Right.
So it makes a lot of clinical sense. If you want to have a nice, dry, clean, smooth surface, just wipe the contact areas with a 2x2 gauze right before you scan. Because then the scanner's picking up a dry surface, no slob bubbles or nothing, and you're just going to get cleaner data. So that was a nice little pearl that I brought home. Okay, so fact. Your experience of modelless accuracy will live or die upon the accuracy of digital records at the time of capture. And that was just segueing right from the contact management, you know, to clean the contacts. Because if you want to have no adjustment on your contacts with modelless dentistry, we have to have a clean, dry contact that the scanner is going to pick up, along with the preparation. We'll be talking about that a little bit later. Okay, here's another little piece of trivia. You know the answer, Mark, but Steve, what's the difference between iRecord scan data and restorative scan data?
One is,
Without looking at the answer on the right. On the next slide.
no, the iRecord is a medical record. And so it's scanned at the highest resolution. The restorative data is restorative data. It's saved as a apply. No,
Apply is a color file.
it's a color file.
Both, yep.
So, does that answer the question?
No. Okay, so the difference really is iRecord captures 3,000 images per second as you're scanning. It's great for study models, night guards, and Invisalign. Restorative captures 6,000 images per second. So it's for crown and bridge implants, partials. Okay, so that was a really good word picture. You know, it's almost like back in the day, we'd use alginate to make a night guard.
Yep.
As opposed to a PVS for crown and bridge.
You got it.
So
Yep.
for an iRecord scanned sequence, it's great for Invisalign, night guards, and you know, those basic removables. Are they endorsing that for dentalists too, or do you use restorative for dentalists? Okay. So, but restorative captures 6,000 images per second, and that's the kind of data capture that we want. If we're going to be capturing something for 20 or 30 microns of accuracy, that's the kind of data capture we want to be working with. So these are some, now I want to go into, for full mouth scanning, some tips. These are some slides and techniques that I learned when I was down in Raleigh, North Carolina. And this may be old hat for Mark and Grazer here. But, you know, one thing I learned is everything begins with a predictable reference point. So when the wand goes in, go to the last molar and then do your scan pattern forward. So really what these slides are talking about is the doing the scan pattern. Oh, thanks, Mark. Like,
There you go.
That's how it's meant to be used.
There's the wand.
Figured it out.
So the scanner is going to come in, you go to the back, and then you do your scan pattern, you know, from distal forward, but always have your reference point at the most distal area of the arch. And this is all for, you know, Invisalign and night guards. You know, I'm not going to go through all the details here. This is all part of the training when you invest in a system that you're going to experience. If you're scanning for Invisalign or clear aligners, capturing 2 millimeters of the gingiva, you know, I've never seen an Invisalign tray go down to the incisal papilla yet.
No.
It's just the teeth.
Yeah.
Okay, and down here, of course, I also included here splint bite for night guards, and you know, as opposed to a centric bite when you're capturing for Invisalign or study models. So another few tips and tricks. Overhead light and loops should be turned off. Do you scan with your loops on, Steve, or you turn the light off?
I take my loops off.
Yeah, okay. Dry occlusal surface before scanning. Once again, we want to make sure that all the spit and slob is gone, so we don't have any refraction of the light that's coming from the scanner. So we want to make sure that we have a good, clean, dry surface as much as possible. While you're scanning, look at the monitor to ensure the teeth are in the center of the field of window. Sit behind the patient. This is all posture stuff. Okay, so let's just employ a real life situation. From today, Steve had a case. He had a patient today, and well, you tell the story, Steve. What happened at 3 o'clock today when your case presented to a person?
Patient came in a patient of long-standing. We've done a lot of work for her over the years. She's retired now. She started out very apneic and very overweight. She's now down to a healthy weight. She stopped using her sleep apnea, but she's got some kind of high tongue posture thing going on. And so now she has open bite in many areas. She's overloading a few teeth too much, and she chews on both sides of her cheek all the time. She had about a 5-month period where she claims she didn't have a good meal because she just kept biting herself. So this is Margaret. So this is the way Margaret lines up at the moment. She came in today to see, can I get a Invisalign and fix my teeth? I said, well, let's just see what we can line up here. So this is a scan. Took about 3 or 4 minutes to do. I got it wrong the first time, and so I redid it. I actually sent it. I had to do it a second time to make sure I got it right. But here's the occlusal reduction and contact
Sorry,
points.
Steve, just a second, we can't see the slide. Yes.
Yeah.
Can we start from the Is it video on this?
Nope, we're moving it right live.
Can't see.
Okay.
Oh, it's not coming. The screen's not coming up.
So you'll drag it over to wherever, like on top of the part.
Don't understand.
Got it there.
Minimize. It's not in.
Sorry, minimize the what?
Minimize your PowerPoint. There we go.
Good.
And we'll just minimize it completely. And then go, there we go.
Yeah, now we're seeing stuff.
Now we got it. Yeah, we can start from the beginning.
And now the screen disappeared.
Great.
Oh, it's coming.
Not for the 5 years.
There we go. Quick little hiccup. We're fine.
So as you can see, if you've got posterior occlusion that's lined up, especially on the right-hand side, that's end to end, then you're going to be chewing on your cheek. Her upper teeth, she said, my teeth don't look that crooked. Well, here, let me show you. And here's the anterior teeth in full crossbite and the way that her teeth align on the other side. So the cool thing about this is the ability to do an outcome simulator. This is nothing new. Oh, okay. This is what I was talking about when we realized that we weren't live with pictures. All the blue that you see is a clearance of about 1 millimeter. All the yellow is about 2.2 millimeters. It's the red that actually contacts. And so she's got 1, 2 teeth of contact.
That's
3.
it?
That's it at the moment. So we are going to now do the simulator. And so here's the before and here's the after. Can I take that? The cool thing about this is you move one and everything moves. So you get a chance for the patient to see what's going to happen and what it's going to take. Also, Mark shared with me one of the little tips I picked up today. If you see, what are we going to do? We're going to do the occlusion.
Yeah, that one.
That one?
Yeah.
And that's
When you have both arches on, it sees right through, but if you click on just one of the arches,
we can see now this is the before. We've got 1, 2, 3, maybe a 4th one here. And now with the proposed one in the simulator, we've got more teeth that are in contact. Now, another thing I did was this one.
difficulty, yeah.
This is difficulty. So where you see a blue dot, that means this tooth has to be moved 0.8 millimeters.
Yeah.
This one was 0.78 or something. No, 0.54. And so these are the ones that, and this is 0.81. These are the teeth that are going to have to be moved over a longer period of time. Then Mark tells me that if you see a blue dot, it'll be a 20 aligner case minimum. And so when this was all over, my assistant and I at 3:30 were bantering back and forth. She says, I'll bet you that's 30 aligners. And I said, I don't think it's gonna be 20, 25. And I'm thinking that I'm gonna withdraw my bet now because I think I lost. Typical, absolutely typical. So
What's the typical amount of aligners? So if you're familiar with it, how Invisalign works, Invisalign comprehensive case is that the package that you select, and that's 20 aligners, over 20 aligners. And of course, there's refinements afterwards, right?
So a simple case, you can sometimes get them done in under 10 aligners, and there's a price reduction that goes with that. This one is going to be full fee. And the patient said yes. So I just have to fill out the form. I've got some new stuff that also Mark told me about today. I can get a picture of her face with my iPhone and bring it into my iTero where this is stored.
So that's just an iPhone photo?
That's an iPhone photo
Okay.
taken from my iPhone on the app, and it automatically is sent over the cloud to my iTero.
You're
and
probably gonna have to
access-
upgrade from your iPhone 4 though, Steve.
Oh, yeah, yes. Another reason I should update.
Need iPhone 11 Pro Max or something.
Still on the old dial
Yeah,
Yeah, I want the dial up.
here you go. You do the one with the three cameras on the back.
Yeah, I got it.
Now he's doing okay, he's doing okay.
I got the 15 or the 14. Okay, so where are we now?
Okay,
So
So we'll move
so
back
she said
to-
yes.
she said yes. Hey, it's almost like a wedding proposal, eh? She said yes. Okay, so am I gonna just minimize this screen and minimize this? Okay,
Back up.
and now I'm starting the presentation again. Oh, yeah, okay. We're back. So that was our Invisalign segment. Okay, so here we got more tips and tricks. One little gem that I pulled back here. And of course, I'm not gonna zoom in or anything, but just talking about scanning implant scan bodies. So let's pretend this is a scan body here. That is a scan.
Is
body.
it scan
That
body?
is a scan body, okay. So that's a good example because this scan body actually has a little hole in the middle. So when you have everything with scanning, accuracy has to do with a reference point. So when you do your scan on a scan body, you want to make sure that your green dot reference point, you could probably not see in this little demo slide here, but it has to be on a hard surface, not referenced on the canal, because the canal is just air. So we want to make sure that the reference points are. So when you do your scan of the scan body, make sure your initial reference point is actually on the rim and not in the canal, because then you got hard data that it's going to be referencing from. That was a nice little gem. Once again, we see all sorts of scans where the wand is just kind of jammed in the mouth and scanned away. We want to be pulling our data like a sniper. Okay, this is can go a little bit into night guards. This is how you do not want to capture the scans for a night guard. What's the problem here, Mark?
Positive stop of the palette. Can't see it yet, but
No, the bite scan was taken in centric for a night guard.
yes, that's right.
What we want to do is capture the scan data with a splint bite in place.
Why is that?
Good question, Steve.
You
Actually,
promised- you
actually,
promised you'd get
Yeah, I'm
around
going to be showing because I'm going to be demoing how we actually design a night guard, and I'll show you where it's so critical. But in general, every human being will, when they open up, everybody has a different degree of rotation and translation. Doesn't matter what their vertical dimension is, if they're really ground down or if they have a normal occlusion without worn teeth. When they open, they always have a certain degree of rotation and translation, and everybody's different. But when we make a night guard, whether it's analog or digital, what happens is if we only get a centric bite, we can only we're guessing on how much the opening is. We're guessing. And in most point, it's always going to be adjustments on the posterior teeth, because this articulator, which is no different than the ones we have in the lab, if we're doing analog, if you just open it by rotation and there's no translation, it's always going to end up with a high bite in the back when the guard goes into place. So if we want to make adjustment-free night guards that literally click into place with no adjustments, we want to capture that vertical dimension at whatever opening. Now, what we do is, if you want to have a guard that has longevity, not thin, what we find is an anterior opening of 4 millimeters, which is this dimension right here. When we do, we're going to reline this with a little bit of bite rag, put the jig in the mouth, and then do your bite scan on both sides. Then we're going to end up with a predictable bite opening. So this is a splint bite here. The splint bite is relined with bite ridge material. The patient closes into it, and this is the scan area right here. We want to record this vertical dimension before the guard is made and not guess afterwards.
Is it ever helpful to have both centric as well as the jig?
Not for a night guard.
No.
No, because where are you going to put the night guard beforehand? We just want to, the patient's only going to wear the guard when the bite's open.
In addition, when the patient, you're not asking them to clench hard, it's just to
No,
close. and
they're
hold.
just closing.
When they close and hold, the musculature here almost always automatically keeps the condyles centered where they're supposed to be. And that's a very predictable place that people will be comfortable in. And so if you're just hanging there, or if you're clenching, you're putting too much force on. It's just a gentle bite, keep your teeth together, and it's more of a almost relaxed position.
Yeah, it's basically like a deprogrammer.
Yeah.
If you put a pencil in your mouth and bite on it, you're not activating the masters, or not very much. So that's your anterior jig.
Okay, everybody, I want to demonstrate here our splint bite registration system for any nighttime appliance, whether it's a night guard or an orthotic. Most night guards are one appliance application where the appliance goes in. And a lot of times the nighttime orthotic repositioning appliance is two pieces, upper and lower. It's very, very unpredictable to have an adjustment-free appliance if we just arbitrarily open the bite. So what I'm going to show you is whether you're taking an analog or a digital bite registration for a nighttime appliance. We have two options. For a single arch appliance, number one here, this is for a standard night guard. You're going to go ahead and position this. I'll demonstrate how we apply bite registration material here. And then we capture exactly what the AP position is and what the vertical dimension is in the posterior region. These are where all the nasty adjustments are made if we just hinge open a traditional night guard. If you're going to have a two appliance nighttime appliance, meaning an upper and a lower, then we have two. This is a 7 millimeter opening with a little extra opening on the top and the bottom here, and that's positioned right between the centrals here. So I'm just going to demonstrate here. First of all, the single. Let's go 7 millimeter. What the doctor or assistant will do is they will go ahead and dispense. Let's take the splint light, and on Charlie my skull here goes, and we just have the patient close into. This is a 4 millimeter opening, and in the intercisal area here. Now we know we're locking in what the posterior position is in the back. So now you will take your scanner. Let's pretend this is a scanner. And now you do your digital bite scan on both sides with the splint light in place. We're all done the bite scan, the bite registration. Now the patient opens. Here we have with the splint bite with the bite ridge material. Now you can pop this out. Now this material, you can autoclave it and reuse it for the next patient.
when you get your appliance back, this will truly promotion, this will truly be an adjustment-free night guard, or a lot of times the then for the programmer with a palatable RAM. Awesome. Now that's a video that we have on our Ocean Ceramics channel on YouTube. It can always be referenced. And we always have fistfuls of splint bites here in the lab. If anybody would like splint bites sent out to them, just give us a call, drop us an email anyway. We're not hard to find. We'd be happy to send you back out a splint bite, you know, for your next night guard case. This is how we want those night guard records to come in. This is burned, isn't it? Yeah. So this is a patient of Steve's. He sent this in with a splint bite. I just circled there the anterior part. Now look at that posterior region there, how accurate that is. Now this is where we design the occlusion tube, upper or lower night guard. It doesn't matter. If you want a little canine guidance, we can build that in too. We just made a standard flat night guard for Vern here. And this can't be any more predictable for a night guard. How'd that go in, Steve?
A week after I'd given it to him, he lost it. And so I wanted him in today because I wanted to try something that didn't work out. And he said, but I can't, I lost it. So I called my buddy James. James, he's lost it. He says, don't worry, I've got the data. I'll just hit the button. I'll print one.
We just reprinted the exact same box.
So at 12 o'clock today, my lunch is 1 to 2, 12 o'clock today, Vern came in. And so I fitted it into place. He felt it was tight. I just asked him to bite on it. And I use a blue marker because it's easy to clean off than the red tape, right? And I brought it down and it was perfect all the way along. I said, okay, let's take a scan of the night guard in place. And iTero wouldn't pick it up. So James gave me a can of white spray powder,
Scan spray,
in order that the artificial intelligence on the scanner won't deny this somewhat translucent kind of stuff. And so the problem was, in retrospect, I should have sprayed the inside of it.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Right. I sprayed the outside of it, and after 2 cheek movements, all the powder comes off of it. So after struggling half an hour, I got the actual arch to come up on the screen. I did the lower, I tried to do the bite, and there wasn't enough powder left, and you spray more powder on the outside of it, but it's a different pattern than it was before, and I just couldn't get it to work. But Vern left with a very nice new.
At the end of the day, the bite was perfect.
And I said, how did you lose it? And so he says, I got out of bed, I had to get dressed and run out. I still had the garden in my mouth. I put on my jacket. I was outside. I thought, oh, damn, I got the garden. Took it out and put it in his pocket. I got on the bus, reached in, pulled out my eye buds and put them in my ear, and I think it fell out of my pocket on the bus. So,
You don't
So it's
want it back
on the
after that.
bus or the SkyTrain somewhere?
someone-
Somebody got a free night guard somehow. Eh? They just got to dip it in water and refit it. Well, anyhow, 90% of all of our Ocean's night guards in this material called Orthoflex. So this is a thermoplastic material, which is really, really handy because sometimes, you know, some patients, they want a snugger fit. Some patients want a looser fit. What it gives you the ability to do is if you just put it in warm tap water, literally for 5 seconds, now you can mold and adapt it a little bit. And you can squeeze those regions in, you can spread them out where it's moldable. And it's just a handy way not to get into a bind with different fits. And I'll show you why. So this is a situation where we made a Modeless night guard for a dentist out in Tawasin. And I got a phone call at 4 o'clock on a Friday. And she's like, James, I couldn't get the mouth guard out of my mouth. I says, what are you talking about? It won't come out. It's too rigid. So we made a modelless night guard for her. She clicked it in. Her molars were a little bit angled lingually, and she could not get that thing out. She literally had to have her associate cut a groove in it. And here's the associate trying to pop this thing out. It would not come out. Now, if this was orthoflex, it's no problem because it has a little bit of give to it
That's fine.
on insertion and in removal. So that's how they finally cut it out. And I have the pieces downstairs still. But this is a really good indication, though, that if you're in the modelless world, it's a little bit risky to ask for a rigid night guard. Orthoflex will always have a little give. So when you're in the modelless world, you don't want a model charge, that's fine. If you really want a rigid guard material, it's just wise that we have to print off a model. We've got a half model charge, just so that we can verify the clip fit, that the guard will go on and it be able to pop off. So it's just one model if you want the rigid acrylic, okay? So, but it's still a great material. But Orthoflex achieves the same result in clinical treatment without any of those issues. So let's have a look at here. Key points for optimum fits. Insertion direction. We always instruct and advise all of our guards when they're designed, always place them anterior first, then click the posteriors in. And when they come out, pop the posterior and then take the insertion out from the anteriors. We always block out everything. Literally, you'll see in the design segment here, there's exactly how it's designed. Vertical dimension, we always want to have that vertical determined at the time of bite capture. Anybody wants a splint bite, just let us know. When we select the undercuts, and what we do is usually go 1 bi and 1 molar on each quadrant, and we're always dialing in, depending on our undercuts, 1 millimeter on those 4 teeth. If you put undercuts in and design undercuts on more teeth than that, you're going to have a situation like I was showing you with that dentist. So the first thing, this is the sequence. So this gives people a little snapshot and insight how we actually design these things. So this is actually me. This is a scan of my mouth, okay? And I also took a splint bite record, so you'll see how much of an opening I have. I actually have a bigger opening than the splint bite, because you'll see why in a little bit. But the first thing we do is we establish the horizontal plane. So here we go. We're going to nail the horizontal plane. It's going to ask for 3 records. So we go either on the molar, incisal edge, and molar, or we can go hamular notches. So HIP. And so there's the mounting. And this is actually HIP mounting for my own case. Here it is in the articulator. This is my radiograph. So Dr. Liam took a scan, ICAT scan on me. I've got great condylar position. This is my bite in centric occlusion. Okay, here's the annulus you made for me, Steve, about 15, 20 years ago.
Yep.
Yeah. And but here's the key one here I want everybody to see. That right there. That's why I snore like a hog at night if I don't have a guard in place. Okay. So what I do, the reason why you'll see my jaw position is down and forward so much is because I don't want this flapping in the wind causing my wife to stay awake all night. It's not good. Not good. Okay. So this is my collapsed airway here. Great nasal, but in the back of my mouth, that's where I'm snoring a lot. Okay, so if we look at, this is my mounting, and my mounting, this is a big, big opening. So I set the insertion direction. This is how it just comes up when you hit come to insertion direction, but I'm actually setting it for anterior. I'm gonna go back one. I want these anteriors to have the easiest path of insertion when it gets entered into the mouth, upper or lower, and then I'm only going to design the undercuts on the posteriors here. So here's my automatic blockout for that insertion direction. And then I'm gonna go with my smooth tool and I'm blocking out anything that's remotely undercut, I'm blocking it out. Because what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create my blockout buckle and also on the lingual. Once again, 2 teeth on either side. And it's gonna be in total 1 millimeter per tooth. It could be half a millimeter here, half there, we don't know. So now I outline the design or the spline of the guard. And then in the tool, I got a function, I highlight from lateral to lateral. And on this situation, I'm making myself an anterior deprogrammer with a palatal ramp, because that palatal ramp is posturing my jaw down and forward. Okay, because that's maintaining my airway so I don't snore and I don't brush. If I don't wear my guard, my masseters and my jaw joints are absolutely trash. So here's the ramp that comes down onto my lower, and I also wear a shell on the lower so that I don't have any orthodontic movement on my anterior tooth. Okay. So this is all designed. This is just a 2D cross section that shows the undercut and how tight the adaptation is to the teeth. So you can see here on the inside in the intaglio, here's the undercut that I created on each of these 2 teeth. And you can see how this is all blocked out, smoothed out, so that I have a predictable path of insertion. And that's where I want the click to happen. This is what we call a Dentiform deprogrammer. So the STL file goes off to the printer. And this is printed in OrthoFlash. So the other night when I was working on the slides, because this is a true nighttime appliance, I took a little scan of me with in my house coat right before I went to bed. And this is my Dentiform guard. Now have a look at that opening. That's the opening I sleep with every night.
Wow. Gee. It's terrifying.
You know what though? I sleep like a baby. I am so refreshed in the next day because I got oxygen going in. So
I told you the story about my first snore guard.
yeah, because told you go because we roomed once and I said, dude, you need a sleep appliance. We were in Toronto, actually.
So I got home and I ordered one, an early one that Orem was making at the time.
Who?
Orem Ceramic.
Who's that?
So I don't work on Fridays. I usually used to run the kids around on Fridays. And I got the text saying, your snore guard is here. We'll deliver it to the office. And I was running my daughter around to her things at the time, and we happened to be downtown. I said, Dad's just going to stop at the office. I need to run up. I need to grab something from the office. And she said, well, what is it? And I said, well, it's a gift for your mother. She said, well, what is it? And I said, oh, I've got an anti-snore guard. It'll help me stop snoring, so keeping your mom awake. And she turned to me. She was sitting next to me in the car. She turned to me, put her hand on my thigh and said, Dad, that's a gift for the whole family. So that was 20 years ago. She's now 32. And I can count on the fingers of one hand how many nights I have slept without it. It's the difference between
I have
having a
3
good night's
sets of these things because I just print them off. I got a set in my travel bag, like my backpack. I got one next to my sink in my room at home. And then I have one in my travel bag with my shaving kit stuff.
You're covered. You're covered.
I am covered every base. So anyhow, now my wife then, Terry, she says to me, she goes, man, did you snore last night? I go, well, what do you mean? I had my guard in and it's good. And she says, whenever you drink a couple cocktails, you snore because the soft tissue in your body relaxes. So what I did was I imported my lower member or the file, okay, because the upper, the programmer is the opposing, and then I imported the lower. And then I took my byte in the virtual articulation and I took it down and forward 1 millimeter. And then I engraved on the side of it here. And it's here, if you look close, it says for bourbon. So this was the one I wear when I have a few cocktails and I don't snore.
I love
After a
that.
few cocktails.
Whole new market segment.
Whole new market segment. I put it on. It says for bourbon.
You saw it first here.
And this is how they go into place. This is like literally right out of the printer, and I haven't even polished them up yet. And I literally just go click.
3 different cases.
I guess we need headphones to hear the click. Yeah, that's beautiful.
Great.
Here's a nice little application too with, you know, if anybody's doing hybrid dentures out there, with zirconia or PMMA, this is a verification jig and hybrid impression all in one appointment with no abutment costs. So what we're doing here is these are impression coatings. Actually, I got narrative on there, don't I?
So the doctors can take the verification jig, make their own verification jig, and take the master impression with honeycomb, all the same appointment. And not having to buy parts for verification.
Could be a
Save like
scan
anywhere
or-
from $700 to $800, $900, depending on the
You
system.
scan bodies.
So here we
Some
have
scan body,
the
just healing caps.
Gotcha.
impression analogs that we screwed onto the multi buttons. So then we make this bar. It gets placed in the mouth, like so. And the doctor will go ahead and loop the bar with acrylic, cold cure acrylic, to these impression analogs. And then they're going to load it, the tray up with honeycomb, and then place this over the bar. Unscrew the impression analogs, take it apart, and voila, you have a verified model. You have verified impression here, all in one appointment. Okay, any questions? Give us a call. Phone numbers on the video. Cheers.
Okay, let's jump into the Modeless crowns, do's and don'ts, and the where and whens. Once again, we're going to go back to fact. Your experience of Modeless accuracy will live and die on the accuracy of digital records at the time of capture. So we've got an impression, we got a scan, we got a byte, goes into ocean. Our Modeless crown is called a cyber crown, and it goes back to clinic. But we're going to talk about a few of the restorative tools that are important for maximizing accuracy in the iTero system. Once again, I already spoke about scan pattern here and wiping the contacts with a 2x2 gauze. And why is that? Because we want the ultimate clean and dry surface. You know, in the past, we take it for granted that all sorts of crown prep debris and saliva and FRS, the funny red stuff, would be wherever. And, you know, hosing it off with water and air sometimes doesn't get it all, but an impression material will squeegee that out of the way on insertion, but the scanner won't, because it's only emitting light. So we want to make sure that surface is nice and clean. No crown prep debris. So we want to do a pre-prep scan. We want to capture the contacts. One of the gems I picked up, Mark and Riley, was don't bother trying to scan the prep all and the contacts and everything all in one.
Yeah.
When you do your pre-prep scan, focus on the contacts and all the teeth, but you're going to do a separate scan of each prep in a certain sequence. And so This is all part of the training. I'm not gonna go through every little detail here, but that's part of the tech support with Mark and Graz as you go into a scanner. But one of the things that's really important is to make sure that all your prep data is stitched together properly. And that all begins with following the sequence of preps. So here we have the tooth numbers here. This is all the US coding system, but you can see on the top here, it's telling you have to follow all the different prompts on which tooth to scan. So now it's this guy right here, number 10. And then, oop, no, not that one. There. Now it's number 9. And now all of a sudden it hopscotches over to number 5. So if you just go and keep going around the arch like our brain would lead us to, you're going to have a flawed record. You have to follow the scan sequence here that is prompting you, because if you don't, you're going to end up with a pile of hamburger here. And the only way that that can be reconciled, I think you can send it into iTero modeling, and they can unweave that mess and
Yep.
still give you a decent model to work with.
Yep.
But this is really important. If we do get something like this, and we can send the file off to iTero modeling, but paying attention to the actual scan sequence of preps is really, really important, you know, to be on top of. And you want to be really careful that you're not over scanning. So Steve, what are you doing when you're scanning preps? Are you
Counting to 8.
counting to 8? Okay.
He's got it.
So once again, you want to start on the occlusal, go all the way lingual, come back over the buccal, and make sure you're going to capture. If you have to, fill in any voids, use the fill tool. Whenever you're scanning.
And practice. Before you hit the button to start capturing, you can see what the camera's looking at. And if you go one way and you got it to adjust it, okay, now you've learned how to do that. So you're going to come back to the center again, and then you're going to go to the lingual, but you've already done the dance, so you can get it done quickly. And I used to try to get the contact points on each thing until you sent me this tip, and now I'm doing it in the pre-scan. So perfect on my contacts.
So the and for capturing margins, especially, if you're fighting blood and saliva and so on, you want to get it in under the 8-second or 9-second mark as recommended, so that you're picking up a clean margin. Otherwise, things are going to start to move and invade the area that you want to scan. Another good tip that I picked on that made so much sense to me is when you're scanning, pretend your scanner is almost like a toothbrush, holding it perpendicular to the surface of whichever surface you're scanning. And you think of it this way: if you look down the top of a building and you just look over the edge, there's a window there, but you really can't see it. But if you're on the street level, now you're looking straight at it, you can see the window. And that's pretty much how the scanner is looking at a prep. If you're just capturing it from the top view, you're going to have a flawed margin down here. And so that's why you want to make sure that the scanner tip is always perpendicular to the surface of whatever you're capturing. Once again, taking a bite and instruct the patient to clench. Because if you don't, you're going to have a flawed occlusal record. So this is an incorrect camera placement, correct camera placement. If when you're taking your bite scan, what do you actually teach people for camera placement?
Well, as we talked about earlier, open the mouth first, get the scanner in there, then bite down, and then put it right in line with the 5 and 6. Don't go back to the 7s and 8s, because you're going to be pushing on those master muscles. You're going to make them uncomfortable. You're going to make them shift their bite.
Gotcha.
Put it on the 5 and 6, and also for scanners, because they're trying to stitch things together. So the buccal view of a 5 and 6 look very different. So it's easy to stitch. A 6 and 7 kind of look the same.
Yeah.
Right?
So it could confuse.
It's much easier for the scanner to recognize.
Gotcha.
How important is it to have the prepped tooth in the bite?
No.
Okay, so camera placement is critical. Once again, here's another illustration of the having the angulation properly, perpendicular, flat to the surface that you're trying to capture. Make sure you, when reference point, very important, whenever you start a scan and then turn the wand on, make sure you have your reference crosshair or dot where you actually want it to be. So once again, we're going over.
If you go online and look up scanning with iTero or something, and you get an old video, an old YouTube, you'll see a very different technique on it. And they'll have you rotate through 90 degrees going in and around, and it's just been proven that it's just not as accurate. You're taking too long a scan, you're layering too much data on top of it. It is tough sometimes to get that interproximal area when it's just right up against the tooth, but you can sort of move it in and out like a worm as you're going down, rather than trying to overdo it.
This approach and technique, this applies to all scanners, I
Oh, yeah.
believe. Yeah,
Yeah.
not just an
Not just
iTero.
yep. They're all very similar in their method of capture.
So once again, the illustration, you want to scan almost the position like you would be brushing your teeth, perpendicular to the surface. This is a really good illustration. This is Renee down in Raleigh, and she gave a good illustration. You know, the scanning is almost like taking a selfie. If you take it angled at the wrong angle, it's going to distort the image. So have a look at where it says starts with iTero in the back here with the wrong angulation, as opposed to, and how her face looks tapered here, as opposed to straight on, where it looks like more of a natural face, and the lettering in the back here looks legible also. It doesn't look warped. So perpendicular is a great guideline whenever you're capturing a scan in the mouth. This is also very much applicable when we're talking about capturing margins. If you're trying to capture a margin from a topical view only, you're gonna have a skewed result. You must be perpendicular when you're capturing that margin. This is a good indication for proper incisal edge. If you have shadows at the incisal edge, you probably got some inaccurate scan data. So you want to make sure you have no shadows on incisal edges when you're doing like a full arch scan.
Dry.
Dry. Wipe it with a gauze. So Mark, here's a quick portfolio of what you guys got going in the market right now. You want to just give like 30 seconds explaining what you got going here?
Yeah, just a quick comment. You know, I've been selling the iTero for 5 years now, and I used to have just one scanner to push, and that's what I'd be pushing out there, trying to convince them that they need it. I really like that iTero's gone the direction of they have a family now, where if you need just a bare bones restorative only scanner, we got that for 20 grand. You want something that's going to have all your patient communication, all of your records from caries detection, photos, impression material, all that. We got that moves over to the plus that we have here. So,
Right.
and everything in between. So really, whatever you need, we can help you out with that.
Yeah, pretty much any price point too.
Yeah.
Almost like buying a car.
Yeah.
You got your entry level car, and then you got your
Exactly.
Mercedes, right? Do you have the Porsche or the Mercedes?
Get the Mercedes. Porsche's too fast.
So anyhow, just basically iTero different scanner systems. Some of the features of the different scanners. This is all information that Mark and Graz can go over with everybody when they're interested to initiate that. This is just your entry level scanner system.
Yep, you got it. Same accuracy. There's no change in the accuracy of the.
Yeah, that's what
crowns.
they're explaining. The wand is the same,
Yeah,
right? It's a little
exactly.
different than that one, right?
Yeah.
That's not the one.
So, yeah, this is just all the iTero slides here. Same trusted restorative tools. This is all part of the training. You know, when somebody decides to come aboard, basically your financing is approved, the scanner's delivered, you have your product training, and then you're basically integrating out of the gate, right?
I mean, if I could talk real life
Yeah.
story with Steve there, you know, you tried out another scanner, right? the price point's attractive, something new comes out, okay, let's try it out. What kind of support did you get when that showed up at your door? Right, are you getting the level of training that Itero's been able to offer you over the years?
So the iMedit had one, I don't know if it's true now, I haven't used it for more than 6 months now. Had one representative for all of Canada. He lived in Vancouver, but when I needed him on 3 separate occasions, he was either in Montreal, Toronto, or Ottawa, away helping other people across the country. And I needed some hands-on stuff. So the first thing I did was I phoned Mark when I got my Itero, and he answered the phone at 6 o'clock, and I went, oh, wait a minute, this is dinner time and you've got kids. Yes. Okay. Who else can I call? So I just met Graz today. She's just across the room from us here. That's rep 6 here in Vancouver now.
17, actually, there's a bunch that you don't even do.
I don't have their phone numbers yet,
17 in BC alone.
but
Is
so
this the people?
Nope, that's
That's a
just the
different team?
clinical training team.
just, but the most important part of the Itero system is it's been around for 20 years. Yeah.
Since 1995,
When did I get my first one?
early 2000.
Yeah.
We were one of the first in town.
But you pick up a phone, it's a 1-800 number, they put you through a menu, 1, 2, 2, gets you to customer support or technical support, and you wait. And they've got 100 people,
More.
more,
We just hired 100 more.
100 more. And so it's, you expect to wait on the phone for 15 minutes or an hour if you're phoning Visa or something. And within seconds, a lovely voice comes on and says, hello, my name is Maria. Lots of them are still from Puerto Rico. I don't know if they still are.
Yep.
They all speak very good English. And they said, yes, I can help you with that. So I had a problem with my artificial intelligence. I wanted to disable it and I knew how to do it, but it wasn't working. So she says, press this. Nope, that's not working. Press the green button up top. She takes it over. Something's slipped in the settings. So let's go back and reset. So she goes into settings, done. It was done in
By
10
TeamViewer?
minutes. By TeamViewer. And so the support that Itero has is vastly superior. Next door neighbor to me bought a 3-shape Trios and gave it back after 6 months. He says, I don't want the money. I want this to find a nice home. And they flew the president of 3-shape or Trios out to his office to see what was going on. That was the only visit he ever had from tech support. And so it's a problem out there and you're not going to get better service than you're going to get from Itero.
Well, I know whenever we invest in any technology in the lab, I don't just buy the product and the price.
No.
Tech support is the
Is
package.
the package,
I
especially
gotta have that,
something
because
as high tech as
because
this.
if something goes, it's not if something goes down, it's when something goes down and you have a challenge or a glitch, you gotta get back spinning your
So
wheels.
after, with Itero, after you get a certain, you get up to, okay, here's the financing, this is what it's gonna cost you, and 6 months later, there's an upgrade. It's free. You get a choice as to when you get it put on, because sometimes you have to wait 20 minutes for a upload, but it just comes with the entire package, every little detail. I learned stuff today that I get the emails that something's been implemented, and if I've got time, I read them, and most of the time I bypass them. And I've missed some crucial things today, that I learned today. So I can't speak more highly of this company than that.
Wonderful.
You guys can hear.
Fantastic.
Nice.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. So here's a clinical training team. Is this a team that does the online training or the virtual training?
Virtual, but they also go in person when needed.
Okay.
So yeah, that's just the trainers themselves.
Great. Okay, so once again, I'll go back to a simple workflow of impression bite and scan uploaded to the lab on the MyItero portal. And I can't stress enough, the experience of Modeless accuracy will live and die on the accuracy of digital records at the time of capture. So our product is a cyber crown. So here's a little tip when you're in the Modeless world. Your contacts must be parallel. They cannot be divergent. So here's a little video of a doctor that I sent a little video to. did it on a printed model, but I just showed her that she needs to do a little adjustment on the distal of this first molar here in order for the crown to draw, because this contact and this contact were converging on each other. Discuss that.
That's high.
Sure.
Okay, so this is for.
Just explains
patient
everything.
four, we're doing single molar, got a real draw. Oops, sorry about the air gun in the back. Got a draw issue to this crown to go on.
No,
So-
so a modelless issue.
I'm looking for my pointer. Here it is. Okay, so these contacts here are very converging like this. So it's impossible for us to get the crown to draw. So what I'd like to do with your blessing is I'd love to have a nice snug contact here, but I'd like to take away from this contact here. So this would be the only place for you to adjust in the mouth. And then you can get a nice draw of this crown seating. So once again, it's for Sean Moore. Appreciate your feedback so I can expedite this for you. Thanks, Jared.
So this is a really good indication of a service that we do. A lot of times, whether it's in design, post-production, we really, really value communication with all of our clients. So a lot of times we wanted to confidentially send a little short video to a doctor of an issue. They can get back to us in as quick as they can so we can expedite a case. But this is a lot of how we handle communication with several of our cases, big or small. Now, our cyber crowns, whenever we do a cyber crown, even though we say it's a modelless crown, we still print off just a little check model for the contacts. And this is a case that Steve and I did where I says, okay, Steve, I'm going to make you 3 crowns. Contacts are going to be all the same. But I'm going to give you 3 different occlusal offsets. You tell me which one you like best in the mouth. Do you remember this case? What do you remember? Which one did you like the most? I remember.
I believe it was the third one.
You're right. It was number 5 here. So what I did to identify the crowns is I took a refractory pencil, which means it's not going to burn out, and I wrote 3, 4, 5 on the inside of the crown, and so then Steve could have a reference on which one he wanted best. So I'm not going to say numerically what the occlusal offset was because it's a proprietary number, but anyhow, whenever we have an accurate bite scan and we know how to dial in these contacts to just slip it right into place, assuming that contacts are not converging on each other. And we just want to make sure there's no undercuts on the preps. You want a parallel wall, but no undercuts. And we have an occlusal offset that should give you an adjustment-free bite. If you got to dust a little contact that on the occlusal, that's completely clinically acceptable. But anyhow, this is what we call cyber crown. And it's modelless, so it's applicable for single unit posteriors exclusively, maybe 2. If you have that positive stop on the last molar or something, we can do 2. It's a single shade guide match. We cannot have, the Picasso of shade requests on it. It's a single shade guide match. You're saving a printed model fee of $40. And we do have for local lower mainland clients, if you have a same day patient where you need a crown, same day, maybe the insurance is expiring and you got to get it set, we can definitely, if we get a scan by 10 o'clock in the morning, we can have a crown back to you in EMAX by 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So you can bond or cement those into place. And that's a same day option, because that is a growing trend for same day dentistry. So you can have a same day crown without spending a couple $100,000 on a chairside milling system. It's a wonderful option. And once again, our CyberGuard, our modelless night guards, splint bites. This is the key. If you want to have adjustment-free night guards, that's the key to record your bite scan. You're just going to inject a little bite reg here, have the patient close into it, do the bite scan so you can record that vertical dimension, and you get back a Modeless Orthoflex night guard. So once again, there's all sorts of iTero scanners. We partnered up with iTero. We have all sorts of purchase programs available at whatever price point or scanner system you want to be involved with. We're a Calibrate certified lab, so we know ins and outs of the system to help you along in your journey. And so whatever system you decide on with Mark and Graz, we have programs to help subsidize your purchase. So it's just a matter if you want to engage in the technology, if it's the right time for you or not. But finances is not a concern. So lastly, before we close off the presentation here and transfer and actually do some scanning as a demonstration, I just want to show that we have a course coming up on February 3rd or 4th. This is a course, our Denta 4 course. This is where we teach doctors how to open a bite predictably before restoring them. And so Dr. Edmund Liam, he's on our faculty, he's been teaching this for many years for us. He's a diplomat with the American Academy of Facial Pain. If anybody knows how to open a bite and get them to a healthy spot before restoring, it's Edmund. And so it's a 2-day program, and there'll be lots of advertising coming out. We have limited seating here in the lab. So if you want to attend, I highly recommend it if that's the type of treatment options that you want to offer your patients. So if anybody wants to take a screenshot of my email and Steve's email, we, in the history of us teaching together, we're here to teach all of you. So if you, anybody in our audience, your colleagues, if whoever wants to learn, Steve and I are here to teach. We're always welcome for anybody to reach out to us when they're in a pickle, even if it's the middle of a busy day. Drop us an email. We're extremely accessible. Steve, you want to add to that? I think that's one of the things that have really helped us along in our journey is having our mentors available to help us along.
Well, and then what we learn from you. Sometimes stuff can seem pretty mundane or pretty obvious, but if it's a trend, if we get more than 2 people asking the same kind of question, it's like we've been missing something that we're not teaching or something. So it's a real win-win. So
Exactly.
please don't hesitate. We've got questions about temporary materials or bonding materials or chemistry of any type. Just drop us a line and pick up the phone.
Steve and I have been teaching smiles for probably over 20 years now, and we're probably going to have another course coming up in the next year on how to just design and deliver a smile. Steve talks about bonding technique and prepping. I talk about materials and setup and occlusion and design and photography, all those sorts of things. So that's definitely in the queue. Always, we love doing that, and there's always something new around the corner with doing smiles. Okay, so we're just going to clear off here and want the crew going.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so thank you very much, everybody. We're not done yet with all of you because Mark's gonna get the scanner going here. He's gonna scan me. Steve's gonna do a bite, just into the splint bite. And we're just gonna show you how quick and easy it is to scan up a night guard.
Were you going to say?
Sure.
Oh, you said that.
I didn't think a bar still would be a good application. So what camera did you want to use, Mark? Or
I'm gonna move this.
you want me to just sit like this?
Yep, it's perfect.
Let you guys take over the narrative.
Okay, just have the patient gently bring the teeth together. The idea is to hold in place. There should be a little bit of muscle tension here, but not much. This is not a clench. It just helps the seat to climb back. Open. Very simple, no adhesive or anything. Get the stuff in here. These are disposable. These are full sterilized. They make a difference. Also makes a difference when they do the steam sterilization. Line it up on the midline. And in front of the enamel on the teeth, and then that's the base. That's it. Just keep the teeth together. And open. Oh, bite down. You're gonna scan first, aren't you?
I know I can scan after you're done there. That's all right.
Okay.
Yeah, you can put it back. Yeah.
So we're just gonna hold on to this. We're gonna scan James up. And then we'll take the bite with this in place.
Okay, dry as best as you can for me here.
I'll blow if you like.
Need some 2x2 glass,
We do.
There's
just like
a bunch right on that table over there, Steve.
that hot tip from Raleigh.
Absolutely. I didn't think we had any.
No, the supply table, there should be some gauze there.
Just get some toilet paper.
Oh, lift the tablecloth up. Box on the bottom.
We can make this work, no problem, James.
Ooh, I saw some earlier today.
Once your patient close their mouth after you wipe their teeth dry, get them wet again. Keep it open.
Ask them not to lick their teeth.
Yes,
You
please.
Just freeze for a little bit.
If you can lean, look up at the ceiling, please.
I point out, I take my own bites, I take my own scans, but I would point out that he's just taking pictures and an assistant can take an impression. And so you don't even need to be in the room. I have to strongly advise that you come in at the end of this, there's my signatures on it and a confirm button. That means I've looked at it and I'm responsible for the content of what's on it. I think that's crucial, but you don't need docs, you don't need to be in the room to get this done.
What's happening there, Mark?
We're just about done the lower there, nice and quick and easy here. James, is that comfortable for you? Fantastic. And now we're going to move on to the upper. So again, I'm just putting in the mouth, making sure that I got it centered on the viewer there, that little window. I switched over to color just so you could see the different ways. I'm touching along the teeth itself. I'm just sliding along the teeth, nice and comfortable for the patient, as well as just easy for you to capture that data without having to worry about you hovering or making sure that you're keeping the tongue and all that out of the way. Sliding around the palatal here. See, I just holding the wand here and with a nice little pen grip. It's really comfortable and easy for me. And then I'm gonna roll into that buckle. When I get into that anterior area, I'm gonna make sure to flatten that wand out in the anterior so that I make sure to keep that lip out of the way. And roll over those incisal edges.
Just like brushing your teeth with a tooth.
Just like brushing your teeth. Okay, and looking at the screen the whole time, making sure to capture all the data. If anything's missing, I could always go back and fill in the little areas, but that'll certainly do for this. This is the purpose of this presentation here. And then we're ready for the bite whenever you're ready there.
Oh,
There you go.
You got it? So ideally, it'd be nice to have the patient open their mouth, but you can't really do that in this scenario. So we're just gonna ask James to get comfortable here for a minute.
But he's not gonna shift very much holding that in place anymore.
Okay, once I'm in contact, everything's comfortable. I'm gonna go right onto the teeth, turn on the scanner. And I'm just gonna go up and down, capturing at least 3-4 millimeters of gingiva. And you see the two scans come together in that picture, the two arches come together. That's told me that I've captured the information. Okay, slide it in on this side now. Again, I'm gonna just turn it on. I'm gonna slide up, capturing quite a bit of gingiva. I'm gonna slide down. And as soon as I see those arches come into the picture, I've captured it. And there is my bite.
Sweet. That's really cool.
Nice.
And a little plug for the iTero that we like about it is, while I took that impression for the purpose of a night guard, I captured a ton of records there because once it's loaded, oh, it already is, I can push this blue button now, I can look for carious lesions, I have my internal photos, everything is all done in one shot.
And if this were a restorative case where we're checking for the occlusion and oops, you haven't taken quite enough off, you can isolate where you're going. Say it was one of these front two teeth. Draw a circle around it. Difficult to do.
Yeah.
It's difficult to do with your glove, so let
Yeah.
or do it. Hit the button and then it'll erase forever that data. So anything you go back in and scan in this area will be brand new and not a layer upon layer of data. Make the adjustment, for the reduction. And turn it on.
There we go. We're all
Awesome.
set.
Well,
Ready to send to James?
I got a question for you, Mark. How's this data presented to patients in a hygiene department? How's the hygienist leveraging this data?
Oh, for sure. Just this happened to me Monday. Patient comes in, absolutely faultless with her oral hygiene, getting the stuff clean. She has to fly the next day to New York. Her daughter's getting married. And I said, okay, we've got a little something to do, a little chip to take care of, but we need to clean your teeth. She says, oh, they look fine. And so all I did was turn it around. Oh, James, look at that. She had black rims like this, and then she's a coffee drinker. The inside of her lower front teeth were absolutely black. She said, I'll be in tomorrow morning at 8. I'm booked, but for you, absolutely. So that's a quick sale. Also, you tell somebody that they've got inflamed tissue, but it's time, James, it's starting to develop a little inflammation. You point out inflammation here, you bring them back 2 weeks later, do this again, it takes just seconds, and the tissue's healthy. And so it's an instructional
For the hygienist?
education for the hygienist, just so people are looking at, oh, that's a little puffy. That's not. Why is that? Well, there's probably something under that we need to get out. And you can't do that with the mirror very well. But you
Right.
can with this kind of magnification. That's brilliant.
Yeah. And it's very impactful.
It's come a long way, hasn't it?
Oh my
Certainly
gosh.
has. And again, the scan isn't quite doing it for you.
I got,
You have the photos
we
as
were
well.
talking about the 3 o'clock patient, that my 2 o'clock patient who brought it up the NISI. He had largely no restoration and we could see decalcification between his 6 and his 5. And we couldn't see on the X-ray. So.
Was it transillumination that one view?
Nope, no, this is near infrared imaging.
Gotcha.
Yeah, very different, and it's a similar kind of thing, no radiation, all that. It's just the near, we're seeing much crisper images now with the near, and that's kind of where it seems like the technology is heading in the future.
It's not a replacement for X-rays
Nope.
yet.
Right.
But on a child, which you can't get the monitor, not the monitors, the sensors in on, at least you can transilluminate. Look at this. If you just turn these down, you can turn them inside out. You can bring up the color. There you go.
Is that new, Mark?
This is new to the element.
The 5D,
Thank you.
yeah,
Yeah.
when the 5D came out, we had,
You don't have
This
any
techno-
posterior teeth that we can check. Let's take a look at that.
So you can't use it for diagnosing, but you can use it for.
Can't do this in the office.
yeah,
So you get a chance to see the interproximals through here if there's no restorations on them.
That's
And so for a 5-year-old or a 4-year-old who can't sit still anyway, they're looking at this and they're absolutely holding absolutely still. You can get all of this picture and then you can show mom what's going on. It's just it's a
It's awesome.
no-brainer. I don't have many kids, but the few that I have, every one of them gets scanned.
I can see that being seriously impactful for kids.
Great. Well, does anybody have any questions, Mark? You can ask.
Hold on.
Does anybody have any questions?
Let's see, no, we have 11 ons.
okay,
If
great.
anybody does have any questions, boy, if we have that much of an audience hanging out to the end, I think we did something right.
I think so.
So
Thanks, sir.
anyhow, thank you everybody for spending your time with us tonight. And once again, we're all available. to help me in your journey. Awesome. Thanks, guys. Nice. There we go.